So everybody welcome. Very happy to have Arati on board today for answering all your questions via me. So I'll be asking the questions and hosting her. It's been a pleasure to know Arati. It's been I think more than 2 years that we know each other, and she was here for the charter distribution ceremony in Kolkata, and that's when I had the pleasure of interacting with her for the first time. And it's really nice because I know how anxious students are with their exams, with their preparation, and it's been so wonderful to be able to reach out to Aarti and Sachin and everybody from their team with regards to any and every concern of the students. So I am very happy that I have years in India from the institute's point of view in India to listen to all the queries and issues of the students and actually work on it and resolve it. For example, I had posted something about the EMI facility that was started by the institute. So we have been asking the institute, actually been listening to it and working towards it. And the amount of feedback that's collected, the curriculum, everything, whatever feedback that I collect and I have from the students is passed on to Aarti and her team and communicated to the institute and worked upon. So thank you so much, Aarti, for taking our time and joining us today and answering all the curious minds with regards to questions about the CFA preparation, curriculum, etc. So any opening remarks, and then I'll start doing the rapid fire.
Thank you so much, Ashwini. It's a pleasure to be on a platform with you. We count you amongst our key partners and a key influencer for the young minds who intend to build a career in the financial services industry. You have been key influencer and advisor to a number of them. So it's very nice to be on a platform with you. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to speak to young people. Makes you feel younger as well. And I'm looking forward to this session to answer questions on anything regarding the CFA program, the investment management industry, or careers in the financial services or the investment management industry.
So let's start right away with it. We'll be discussing the job profiles first, then the skill set required for those profiles, and then how to make a choice, and moving forward to the most important question that the students have about the compensation. That's the salary, the pay structure and all, because that's a question I get too often. So let's start right away. So firstly, when we're looking at the kind of roles that a CFA level 1 qualified student can expect, because of course after charter there are a lot of companies who roll out jobs for qualified level 3 students because they get experience and then they become charter holders. But what kind of roles can we look at for CFA level 1 qualified students?
Thanks, Ashwini. That's a very important question because a number of students who have passed level 1 are probably just fresh graduates. But there are people who pass level 1 during their post-graduation or after a professional qualification. So jobs vary according to the experience and the qualification that you have when you pass CFA program level 1 examination. If you are a fresh graduate with no experience, the roles advertised that are suitable to you would be typically entry-level positions. This would be mostly in shared services or centers of excellence of large investment management firms, global firms, or firms jobs in consultancy and accounting. You could also start off as an analyst in the local investment management industry or in research and rating firms. You could look at a role in wealth management, in operations or analytics. You could also consider roles in frontline sales and relationship management in the financial services, banking, or investment management industry. Typically, we find that there is progression as you start with your job and continue with your CFA program examinations, as well as continue to gain experience.
Okay, wonderful. So just since you mentioned the sales bit, I always advise students that those who are a bit not so comfortable in terms of, public facing and speaking and all of that, in terms of the grooming aspect, it's wonderful to even get an internship in the sales role for a couple of months, maybe at the beginning, because you learn to listen to a no all the time. And that's also quite rewarding. And there is somehow people are not very fond of the sales aspect, although that's very interesting area to be in as well. And especially since you mentioned about the entry level opportunities in similar domains, so it becomes quite useful. So I think you answered my second question already. So we are looking at the roles and opportunities varying quite a bit when I'm comparing a level 1 with a level 3 passed out candidate.
Yes, absolutely. Our recent compensation study has indicated that there is a significant change both in job roles as well as in compensation as candidates progress from level 1 to becoming a level 3 candidate or even becoming a charter holder. Typically what happens is that with passing level 1 you start with a role, and it could be peripheral to the industry, but as you progress to level 3 there is majority, or I mean there's a higher probability that you would be in a role that is close to the core of the investment management industry. So it's a core investment management industry role. Also, the recent compensation study indicated that most of our candidates get productively employed by the time they pass level 3 or become charter holders. In fact, at charter holder level, nobody is unemployed. Most people are productively employed.
So that brings me to the next question. So when we're looking at building a career, now private equity, the kind of number of unicorns and everything we've seen in our country as well, and the private equity space has picked up. So it's not, when I'm talking about finance, it's not very much restricted just to equity research of public equities and fund management. But private equity is also a very, very considerable space when we're looking at investments, which is a part of the alternate investment space. So how does one build a career in the private equity space, and how is it aligned with the CFA part, CFA exam?
So private equity and investment banking are very strong aspirational careers for a number of our candidates. And I would say that it's not a surprise because they are high paying, highly glamorous roles. So they are equivalent to the Hollywood, Bollywood of the financial services industry. But as in Hollywood and Bollywood, for everybody who makes it, there are thousands who do not. So the first step towards building a career in private equity or investment banking is to be aware of this fact that supply far exceeds demand for roles in these industry. It's an extremely niche industry and the number of people who are employed there is very small. So number of jobs are less. There are specific niche level skills that are required to be in that industry. First and foremost, yes, the CFA program and going through the CFA program, having a CFA designation is definitely useful because it equips you with the technical knowledge to do that job. But it's not the only competency. Typically, private equity firms and investment banking firms hire from because they are so much in demand, these jobs. They have the privilege of employing people only from, say, the A-level MBA schools. So having MBA from a top-level B school becomes important to break into this industry if you are looking at it as your first or entry-level job. The other way of entering private equity roles or investment banking roles is first to work in another industry where you become a specialist. Say, for example, you work in the petroleum industry or in or oil and gas as it is called, or you work in the infrastructure industry or the airline industry. Develop expertise of the business and a strong knowledge of that business. That helps you to enter into a private equity firm which will hire you because you have such a strong knowledge of that industry and they have clients from that industry. So that's another way of entering the private equity space. The other thing that I would like to highlight about roles in this area is the strong requirement for soft skills. You are basically a deal maker in these industry. So you need to have the ability to manage and build relationships with CXOs. So CXO level relationships, you are talking to business leaders, the ability to influence them, to be able to sit at the table and talk to them and advise them are all very important competencies for this role. So you have to have strong public speaking, soft skills, communication skills, articulation and influencing skills, and the confidence and ability to interact with industry leaders.
Absolutely agreed on that. In fact, I've been telling the students preparing for the professional exams is that, of course, when you're looking at your MBA exams, there is your placement that happens at the end of the second year. And along with that, what happens is the kind of grueling routine that they have over a 2-year period. So I tell the students that make sure that you guys are stretching yourself to that extent, because you'll have to read news, you'll have to be comfortable making a corporate presentation, you have to be good with your Excel skills, you'll have to be able to communicate properly with decent size audience. You may not be catering to a 500 plus audience, but to be able to speak to an audience of 10, 20, 30 in your board meeting rooms, etc., you'll have to be comfortable. So, and because the kind of stress which put the students through, so they're able to manage much more in a smaller amount of time frame and to stretch to 17, 18 hours or so. But when we're looking at the professional exams, what happens is at times people can spread out the entire curriculum over a 9-month or a 12-month period as well. So to stress yourself in terms of with the curriculum to do much more than that in terms of reading, writing skills, everything. In fact, writing skills also, as I was talking to a lot of people from the industry, they say that the guy is able to do the research, get the models and everything done. But when it comes to report writing, it becomes a big problem. So as you mentioned about articulating and all, totally agree. Now, given that along with the private equity sector, we're looking also at the fintech space. Now, the fintech is also expanding quite a bit. Credit tech, wealth tech, regulatory tech, insure tech and everything. So what kind of coding language, if I were to talk about and pick a couple of them, so what would you recommend in terms of coding language? Which one would be most aligned with the finance designations and finance curriculums?
With you that tech is invading every space, so irrespective of what part of the financial services or investment management industry you are working in, it's important to have basic knowledge of technology and how it can be actually utilized or leveraged for your industry or for your workspace. That knowledge is more important than just knowing coding. So being somebody who can look at a business problem or a process issue or a challenge and be able to suggest how technology can resolve that problem is a skill that's more important according to me than just knowing coding and doing it yourself. Of course, no, having a knowledge of R or Python, which are basically the key coding languages currently being used, is very useful because it helps you also in providing the solution and understanding the solution. So those are things that you can add to it. We have a number of courses that we have launched around AI and ML and the use of AI and ML in the investment management industry. So those courses can also equip you with the knowledge of the former, which is the ability to use technology to solve problems in the investment management industry.
No, wonderful to hear that. Just since you mentioned Python and R, so my take on it would be Python preferred over R. That is one. Second, which you mentioned to be able to understand the processes in that bit. So I have a lot of friends and students working in the finance domain, of course, and it's actually very important to be able to have an interaction or to be able to work with the tech people. So as you mentioned, the processes and understanding the solution and how technology has to plug in the gaps in the finance domain. That is where actually most of the finance professionals are working. They have to work with a tech counterpart who's going to be executing their requirement or their solution or the gap. So totally agreed on that. And the basics, it's funny that I have to mention, but yes, students have to first get comfortable with their Excel, Word, PPT skills. I've seen people, even in Microsoft Word, they're using it as a typewriter at times and not knowing how to create a table of contents automatically. They'll type in the page numbers and the headings and all. So of course, but as you mentioned, Python, and of course, it's changing how things are working. So my next question is around that. So how is the automation taking over finance industry? So how do we look at our careers to make it very relevant in the long term, given the kind of automation we are seeing in the finance domain?
Yeah, so the best way is to cultivate automation as a friend rather than keeping it as a competitor, as I mentioned. So I would say for cultivating automation as a friend, first thing that one can do is, of course, know it well. So understand automation, learn a little bit about how it can be leveraged to solve problems and to know a bit of the coding language. In addition to that, if you want to sustain your roles in a world of automation, it's important that you cultivate skills which automation cannot replicate, which obviously includes problem solving skills, EQ, that is soft skills, which the automation can never replicate those pieces. So make sure that you are equipped with those skills that automation cannot replicate, and those would be the human skills or the soft skills. So those are the two ways to ensure that your career is sustained and grows in an era of automation.
Absolutely. So I just scribbled some thought of mine a while back. AI will replace you if your I is A. Artificial intelligence is gonna replace you if your intelligence is artificial. So yes, the application of common sense and everything is absolutely necessary today. Next question.
Sorry, I just wanted to take one more minute and give an example. The other day we were at the research challenge, which is our competition that we hold for MBA school students on writing a research paper. And one of the judges mentioned this. They said, if you think your job is calculating DCF, then you are definitely going to be replaced by machines. Your job is to actually explain how a high or a low DCF will impact the performance of your investment vis-a-vis benchmarks. If you can do that, then AI will not replace you. So the application skills, the ability to actually articulate that application and solve problems using data is what you need to develop.
Right, because actually 80 to 90% of the time goes in just getting the assumptions right. The modeling part is barely 5 to 10% of the time frame because it's ultimately putting in what will be the growth rate, what will be the discount rate, WACC, etc. The calculations require tremendous amount of research and assumptions that is fed into the model, the inputs. So totally. Next question I have is, so when we're looking at the CFA program, students start studying along with their graduation levels. How does a student from a science or a humanities background get, or engineering, so I'm including all of that in the science part. So how does a student from a non-commerce background tackle the content and plan to shift to the finance industry?
So, a number of our successful CFA charter holders are people with engineering background. They have done engineering and then used the CFA qualification designation and the program to shift into core investment management industry roles. If you have a degree from the STEM sector, one of the things probably that indicates is that you have strong quantitative analytical skills, which are quite useful for you through the CFA program and for a career in investment management. Second, it equips you with knowledge of technology, which we have been speaking about for so long. So that actually adds as a competitive advantage for you once you go through the CFA program. Many of our charter holders come from varied backgrounds. We have had charter holders who have degrees in humanities. In fact, our former CEO had a degree in history from Oxford University, and he was a CFA charter holder and he was the CEO of CFA Institute. So typically speaking, we have people from varied backgrounds. It's not necessary that you have a degree in commerce or accounting to pursue the CFA program. We find that people with quantitative skills have the advantage of a sharpened quant and analytics competence that helps them through the program. People who have done humanities or economics for pursued economics as a degree have the advantage of knowing micro and macroeconomics or behavioral finance better, which is also a part of the program and the work that you will do in the future in the investment management industry.
Glad. So connecting that to my next question would be, when we're looking at the quantitative aspect, that's relatively stronger with the students in the engineering background. How do you apply that to the technical analysis part of stock market? Because CFA curriculum predominantly is around the fundamental analysis part. So how do we connect it to the technical analysis and stock markets at large?
It's just a question of using the same analytical mind and also problem solving using your knowledge of technology. And you can apply that to fundamental analysis as well as quantitative analysis. The core of the problem remains the same. As long as you are able to knowledge, you can resolve or solve problems in both these areas as easily and in the same manner.
Okay. And another interesting question that I've often received from the students and I want to ask you is that when we're looking at students planning to work, they have a question very often that should they join an MNC, we are looking at a Goldman Sachs or a Morgan Stanley or something, or should I look at these new age startups and all? They're giving a lot of wide array of opportunities as well today in the current state of affairs. So how do we look at it when we're looking at an MNC versus new age startups in the finance domain. Is there any particular preference for entry level candidates?
My advice would be that you can choose between two career strategies. I have personally gained from choosing one over the other. The first career strategy is basically you choose big fish in a small pond, which I prefer. So you choose a smaller organization, a smaller pond, and learn to be the big fish there. The advantage of starting beginning your career in a startup or is an organization which is in its early stages is that there are fewer people and you get the opportunity to volunteer and take on jobs or work beyond what your standard job description is. So it gives you a holistic experience of the entire business, and that's very useful to you in the future. The other option is, of course, you start as a small fish in a big pond, wherein you have multiple colleagues, competitors, etc. Large organizations, especially multinationals, have very good professional development programs, meaning they support or subsidize your professional learning. It could be the CFA program candidate fees or fees to do other additional certifications. So if you join a large multinational, you should definitely leverage on that opportunity and also leverage on the opportunity of the number of colleagues that you have and the vastness of their experience as well as the vastness of the work that the organization does to learn and move quickly. Move not out of the organization but move from one department function to other and continue to experience every piece of that organization instead of blocking yourself into a niche.
Okay, so I'll just share my experiences bit over here. So even I worked in a very small organization for barely a few months. And then I joined a large corporate for about 7-8 months. That was CFA India. And then I started off on my own to create my own small organization. And I totally agree. So the priority is always the job profile, the work profile, and then comes the location, pay, etc. And as you said, MNCs offer a better opportunity in terms of grooming at times, but a very holistic approach and opportunity to do more, get recognized, and try a variety of things. And in terms of work profile, do a lot more is, of course, with a smaller company. And it depends on what opportunity you get. So I always look at, what's the best you're getting right now, let's say with a deadline of a month. And whatever best you get during that time frame, grab it. Because I've seen students at time being too picky and wasting almost 6 months at a stretch and being very skeptical because they're very scared of making a wrong decision. So at times they end up not taking a decision for a very long time.
Advise that while you are pursuing the program, continue to work. We do see a number of students wanting to take a break and study. While that's probably an easier option, the better and the more challenging option is to continue to work while you go through the program. Because it actually helps you to apply what you are learning and therefore assimilate the knowledge that the program offers. After all, the CFA program is an application-oriented program. The second thing is that it actually ensures that you gain the work experience that is required for your career progression along with the program. And the third thing is it doesn't irritate your employers, because we do have a number of employers who come to us and say that they find it irritating that they employ people and then when they are close to the examination they tend to quit to say that they want to study. So I would say please pace your studies in a manner that you start early, pace your studies so that you are able to study along with your work, but do continue to work while you are studying for the program.
Totally, your work ex keeps on getting added on to, it's way better if you're working and studying together, because your work experience also keeps on accumulating. So definitely, although a little biased towards my students, given that I'm a teacher, so I just hope the employers also give them a little extra leave during the exam, which becomes a challenge for some of the kids at times. But 100% they need to be working alongside their preparation. Next question, there are a lot of certifications in finance today. And especially post-COVID, we've seen there are a lot of, I don't know how to put it in the most polite way, but there are certain certifications which is not credible, but there are a number of certifications in the finance domain as well. So how can a student not get distracted by that and be very focused? Because again, you have 3 levels for CFA. You have a passing rate. One has to be seriously studying, and that's hence the credibility as well. And so how does a student make a choice for the CFA program given there are different finance certifications available?
CFA program is not just something that is a certificate or a stamp. It's a lifelong journey, and I would say it comes with a lot of leverage and access to a number of, it's a friend forever throughout your professional career. So the real leverage of the CFA program is not just passing 3 levels of examination or getting a job. The real leverage that the CFA program offers, which other certifications cannot offer, is the access to our network of 190,000 members in 160 countries. The real leverage that it offers is the ability to leverage that network for your future career options or opportunities. The CFA program is a designation which comes with membership and which also comes with access to a number of professional learning tools and access to a lot of professional learning content. So it helps you to keep yourself sharp and keep yourself up as a relevant professional throughout your lifetime. So these things come with the CFA program, which are key differentiators vis-a-vis other certifications or even vis-a-vis other degree programs. So if you see today, almost all the top B schools in India, people who are pursuing a specialization in finance also are pursuing the CFA program. It's obvious that it is because they see an additional need that is being sustained or met by the CFA program. If you are looking at just understanding the basics of an industry or just testing the waters, then short courses or certificates are useful because it helps you to test the water and ensure that you are ready to make a longer term commitment to a professional qualification like the CFA program. For that, we also have recently introduced the Investment Foundation Certificate, which is a short term 100-hour certificate which gives you basic understanding of the investment management industry, and it will help you to test the waters and understand if you are ready to make that long-term commitment to the CFA program.
Perfect. Got it. So now coming to the most favorite questions of the students, the compensation, the salary part. There's one question that I get again very often is the pay structure, the compensation structure. There's a huge disparity according to the students when we're looking at the Indian markets and when we're looking at it abroad. Let's say US, UK, basically globally outside India. So how do you look at that disparity in terms of pay when you're looking at India versus abroad?
Compensation levels for CFA charter holders in India is way above the general compensation levels of finance professionals in the country. And it is definitely the CFA charter holders are amongst successful, I would say, entrepreneurs as well as successful CIOs and fund managers in the industry in India. Obviously, when you look at pay scales for the investment management industry in other more mature markets, the general pay scale is higher because those industries in those markets are way larger than what is there in India. In India, for the size of the economy, we have a very small core investment management industry. We have only 43 companies, mutual fund AMCs in India, whereas there are hundreds of them in mature markets like the USA. The AUM size is also way larger and more mature. And therefore, the salaries that are on offer are definitely at par with what the industry requires and gets. But irrespective, with the CFA program, your skills are transferable. And you could choose at some point in time to work in any other country in the industry. And you could make that choice basis a number of things, including career growth, income growth, or generally a better quality of life. So it's up to you. But irrespective, if you build successful career in investment management in India, you will definitely belong to the creme de la creme of working professionals in this country. If you go to any other country and build a successful career in investment management, it's the same thing.
Correct. And also, what they don't, what at times people miss is the kind of purchasing power parity. I mean, when you're looking at the kind of purchasing power that you have over here in India versus what you have abroad. So, say for example, with a salary of let's say an X lakh rupees, the kind of lifestyle you can afford in India, and when you convert that same X lakh rupees into a dollar, and then when you look at the kind of lifestyle you can afford, would be very, very different. And so that's also something very important. And also, one has to look at it on a post tax basis, because you have to see on a post tax basis what is the kind of life and lifestyle you'll be able to afford in India versus abroad. And the transferability, of course, is there because we can take one level in India and the second level of exam as well anywhere across the globe. So, definitely.
Purchasing power parity is the key, and the cost of living are two things that you need to consider when you are trying to compare pay in India vis-a-vis pay in any other country.
Right. So a follow-up question on that would be, how do we look at the demand for CFA charter holders as well as CFA candidates pursuing, let's say, a level 2 or a level 3 or a level 3 qualified in India? So given that we're racing towards the 5 trillion economy and everything that's happening in India, and it's actually a very, very exciting time to be, witnessing everything, the amount of change that we have seen in the last 10-15 years, post the 2008 crisis and the COVID and GST, demonetization, and the number of things and the way India is progressing. And all the eyes are on India currently in terms of the growth story. So how do you look at that playing a role, or how do you look at the demand for CFA candidates and professionals in India?
So you've already highlighted the fact that the economy is growing. So when economy grows and wealth grows, wealth managers and the need for wealth managers has to grow. But the core investment management industry still, I think, is potentially very small vis-a-vis our economy. So the only way that it can move forward is growing. But I see a number of roles and opportunities for young CFA program candidates and charter holders in roles beyond local investment management industry. Global offshoring firms are constantly expanding their centers of excellence in India. There are many roles of very high value that are moving to India. I mean, almost all the non-client facing roles and even in some cases client facing roles have moved to India. So there is tremendous opportunity for you to actually work for global organizations within India and do high quality work there. So one should definitely look at that as one option. The third option, foremost, I think, area of very large opportunity is wealth management, which is actually core to the job that we are doing, is managing investor wealth. Wealth management is going to be the future job creator as well as entrepreneur creator for the country and the economy. If you are in the wealth management industry, it is up to you to expand the size of the investment management industry. You can actually help to expand the size of assets under management and the size of wealth that is being managed by the industry by either being part as an employee or becoming an entrepreneur yourself. The opportunities for entrepreneurship in wealth management are also massive. So that's one industry that is going to be potentially the job creator and a great place to work or start your career or build your career as an entrepreneur. The other area of growth of roles will be in fintech. Fintech is not just about wealth tech, which is bringing technology into wealth management. It could be banking and payment services. It could be actually core management technology, working in areas like gamification, where AI is being employed to support investment decision making, or automation of analytics. In all these areas, you need a human mind with an understanding of business, finance, and the industry and investment management, along with, of course, a basic knowledge of technology. So these are areas that one should continue to explore. Please do not be tethered to roles in the core investment management industry, or just be tethered to an ambition to become a PE or investment banking professional.
Absolutely, because even just to add on to that, the wealth management aspect. So when we're looking at developed markets, approximately 20-25% of the assets of an individual is parked in financial assets, wherein in India is like a 7-8% or so. So the kind of potential we see in the wealth management space is absolutely humongous. I wish I could do something about it, but I'm happy teaching right now. And the second one, I think I would just add one more to it. It would be the corporate finance segment. Since you mentioned that, not just looking at the core equity research and portfolio management services role, because even when we're looking at corporate finance decision, budgeting, and financial decisions within an industry, a company, and they do evaluate the impact, the NPV IRRs and the cap badge aspect, and taking decisions and evaluating how the impact is going to be on their valuations, because ultimately the CXO's decision making boils down to how it's going to translate on an annual report in terms of numbers, in terms of valuation. That's I would say, the barometer against which their performance is measured by the markets and the investors. So absolutely, corporate finance is one domain which people I believe students kind of skip or do not take it that seriously. Next question is some numbers. So when we're looking at the salary expectation of CFA level 3 qualified candidate, what kind of numbers could we look at in India versus abroad?
So, our recent compensation study is something that's accessible to all candidates. We understand how important this factor is for you, and therefore, we published the annual compensation survey this year. And we intend to run that survey every year, so you get factual responses and data on what CFA program candidates and CFA charter holders earn in this country. What the current survey in 2022-23 indicated is that there is a significant progression in terms of salaries from level 1 to candidates who are level 3 pass or who are CFA charter holders. So currently the survey shows that the average salary of a CFA level 1 candidate is or somebody who's passed level 1 is approximately around 9 lakhs per annum. Now, this could be contributed to by a number of factors, including having postgraduate qualifications or other professional qualifications. So, this is an average. Typically, starting level salaries for CFA level 1 pass candidates, according to us, can range anything but from between 5 to 12 lakhs, and that's a good range to consider or expect if you're starting off there. The next, if you look at vis-a-vis that, if you look at a CFA charter holder, a freshly minted charter holder, someone with 4 to 6 years of experience, because you need 4 years of work ex, 3 to 4 years of work ex to become a charter holder. The average salaries we have seen from the survey is about 28 lakhs. So that's the average salary of a new CFA charter holder, sort of a fresh CFA charter holder. But the average salary overall of CFA charter holders with an average work experience of 8 years is almost 44 lakhs and above. So of course there are people who are way above that average, who are in the, as I said, CIOs, fund managers, portfolio managers, but these are the benchmark salaries that one can mention based on our survey. I would say that compensation in the initial stages, please do not consider that is the topmost factor for choosing your jobs, because with experience and a solid experience, you will end up earning a lot more in the future. Look at your scope of work and the kind of work that you are doing and organization that you are working in, or the brand, more than salaries when you start off with your career.
Perfect. One quick question would be the level. So when I'm looking at the compensation structure getting compared, or for a CFA level 3 qualified student versus a charter holder, so how do we look at that? I mean, is there too much of a gap between a level 3 qualified individual who does not have a charter versus one who has a charter?
We do see a significant jump in salary vis-a-vis CFA level 3 pass and CFA charter holders. That obviously is because the designation adds its value to professional growth and development. And there might be a difference in terms of work experience also of a CFA level 3 pass vis-a-vis a CFA charter holder. So per se, both these factors contribute to a significant jump in salary from a level 3 pass CFA program level 3 pass to becoming a CFA charter holder. We are also consistently working to increase the recognition of the CFA charter and the CFA designation amongst employers. So, as more and more employers see that there is a significant difference because this person is a member of a professional body, is governed by a code of conduct, is supposed to complete certain professional learning hours, and has access to a network of professionals that sharpen his or her skills, it's obvious that employers will therefore see reason to pay more to a CFA charter holder vis-a-vis somebody who's just passed level 3.
My next question would be actually, I've been skipping a lot of questions because we've kind of answered those while discussing this. So, next question is about job roles when I'm looking at data science and application of data science in finance, or if you could also club it with the IT industry. So, how do we look at the IT industry and the data science getting applied for CFA candidates?
I think that per se, even in the area of data sciences, companies that are technology firms or even data science firms, when they are working with clients from the financial services or investment management industry, they will in the future require people with domain knowledge of the industry. So either they will look at equipping their tech people or analytics people with a program like the CFA program or knowledge from the credentials like CFA program, or they will hire CFA program candidates with knowledge of tech to do these jobs. So either ways, these two industries could be, as I mentioned also in the past, be the future areas of work for a lot of CFA program candidates and charter holders.
My next question would be the application of the CFA program with respect to the banking sector. So I'm not looking at investment banks per se, but in general banking sector.
Your question is what is the potential there?
Yes. So how does what kind of roles, for example, a CFA charter holder or a CFA candidate could be looking at in terms of the banking sector?
So banks also perform various roles. Some of them act as investment managers for their client base, whether it is retail or corporate. Obviously, those are core CFA charter holder, CFA program candidate roles, and that's something that you can definitely aspire for. Then there is the other part of banking, which is credit. Again, credit rating and credit analytics is a very large part of the CFA program, is aligned to the CFA program in terms of roles. A number of our candidates and charter holders work in credit analysis and credit rating, and also in terms of credit appraisal. So that's another area where your skills as a CFA program candidate or charter holder are applicable. The third area is payment and payment systems. There again, there is, I think, sufficient leverage from the CFA program information to apply to roles, and that is another area that you can look at. And as I mentioned again, wealth management and investment advisory services are roles that banks perform, where again a number of CFA program candidates and charter holders can look at for roles, either in terms of actually managing portfolios or doing analysis, or as front-end sales and relationship management people with client-facing roles. So in all these areas of the bank, there are also people who work in treasury, in corporate finance, who are CFA charter holders. We also have these days a number of our charter holders working on distressed assets and NPAs. So that is another area that is be attracting a lot of CFA charter holders. I would urge all the candidates here and aspirants to look at our career guide, which is on our website, which is the India Career Guide, and that has profiles of a number of our charter holders working across various industry segments.
Is it okay, Arti, if I share the career guide, since it's anyways online, and the compensation survey also with all the attendees today?
Yes, please do that.
Perfect. So I'll just do that and take care of that, so you don't have to note down.
We want you to use them.
Yes, I know the amount of hard work that's put in to get together these kind of resources for the candidates, and very often they kind of skip those resources. So it's really important. Next question is the application of CFA program in one's business.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, that's an area of passion actually for us now. Even on March 3rd, when we had our Women's Day event, we ran a session before the celebrations for women to develop their skills as entrepreneurs. We would love to see more CFA program candidates and charter holders becoming entrepreneurs, because that's the shortest cut to becoming a CXO, that you own your own business and you run it. So that's one place that we would really like our candidates to start their journey. Per se, the CFA program equips you with a very strong foundational knowledge of the industry, and it gives you therefore the confidence to start your journey as an entrepreneur in the wealth management or investment management space. It gives you the sufficient and necessary technical knowledge and confidence to be able to do that. You will, in addition to that, need to equip yourselves with business management skills, and of course the ability to work across functions. So when you start a business, typically you are everything, right from the chief marketing officer to chief investment officer to CFO. So you will have to develop a holistic business sense of running your own enterprise, and also be prepared to do all kinds of stuff for your business. If you are ready for that, and if you are equipped with the CFA charter, then you are typically very well set to start a career in the industry.
My next question basically is also there on the chat box, which I had it noted. So at times students want to shift, and actually working professionals want to shift their profile. So they have been working in a different industry altogether, in a different role, maybe a non-commerce or a non-finance role, and they want to make a transition into finance. And in order to do so, they take up the CFA curriculum and the CFA exams. So any additional advice, or how do they make a profile shift, because they've already got work experience in a particular domain and now they want to switch to the finance domain? So how do they go about making that transition from the WorkX point of view?
It's an excellent question, and let me tell you that a number of professionals have used the CFA program to make that shift. We have examples of that, which you will find in the career guide and generally across the industry. The way they started is that they had a genuine interest in investment and investment management when they took up the CFA program, and that's why they took it up. And along with the program, they also started managing some money, mostly their own money or their family money. They built a small portfolio out of it. So they could apply the skills that they were learning directly onto that portfolio or that little investment and managing it. So that helped them and gave them a lot of confidence. Third is they actually started using their knowledge to research stocks and write research reports, which they actively used or published on social media to interact with fellow people from the industry. So they used it as a networking opportunity or leverage to network with a number of people in the investment management industry. I also saw many of them attended our programs and events, where they would come mainly not only to listen to the experts at our conferences, but also to develop that network and understand what's happening in the industry. They were probably the most enthusiastic participants in our conferences. And they used that network again to make that shift. Many of them were offered roles or could make that shift because of the network that they constructed while studying for the program. So I would say these are a few things or tips that you should consider if you are a professional from another industry who's trying to make the shift. Study for the program, build your own portfolio, publish reports on social media or share it with professional contacts. Develop your professional contacts by being a part of the CFA Society and Institute's events, and network with fellow professionals.
I'll just add just one line to it. That is, one needs to capitalize on the existing experience. For example, if I have students, one who's an architect, and wants to get into the finance domain, I told her to get into an REIT, a real estate investment trust, or getting into the valuation space for the real estate related industry or real estate properties, etc. There's another student who's a lawyer, CS basically, and into corporate law and due diligence aspect. And I told her to get into financial due diligence and drafting of M&A, acquisition, etc., legal contracts, etc., financial legal contracts and all. So one needs to capitalize on their experience in the finance space. There was another kid of mine in the infrastructure industry, and I told him to get into the infra space of equity research, because you understand the industry very well, you have an industry expertise, and then you bring that finance expertise into that particular industry and work and create a niche for yourself. So always to capitalize on their existing experience is what I've
Mentioned early when you asked me questions about private equity and investment management banking. We talked about that if you have developed expertise in that industry, then you can actually use that for as an advisory support, the competency for entering the investment management space. Absolutely.
Just a couple of very quick questions, and then we'll take a few questions from the chat box. We'll just stretch another 5-10 minutes of yours if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so one question is with regards to the scholarships. So a lot of students apply for scholarships and they do not receive the scholarship. So I have an answer to this from you, but I would like you to tell the students.
Thank you, Ashwini, for raising that. We do offer a number of scholarships, and India is the receiver of the highest number of scholarships amongst other markets. And our intention is to grow that pool, but we can never really grow that pool to cover all candidates who apply. So that will always be a challenge. We would suggest that you choose the right category of scholarship when you apply. So access scholarships are typically for people who cannot genuinely afford the program, whose family income and personal income are not sufficient to pay for it. So in those cases, I would suggest that in your application, you should be able to demonstrate that clearly by showing income, mentioning your household income and the challenges with it, the number of dependents, and therefore the expenditure. The second thing that you need to demonstrate is your genuine commitment to a career in investment management and a commitment to completing the program. So your statement of purpose should really clearly reflect that. That's very essential if you want your scholarship application to be processed positively and get a proper appropriate response. There are women's scholarships that you can apply to if you are a woman and you have the same challenges. There are student scholarships that we offer through our UAP program, which is a university affiliation program. So if you join one of those universities for an MBA or a master's or even a graduate program which is affiliated to us, then you could apply for the student scholarships that these universities offer at their own discretion for the CFA kind of program. The other so those are areas, of course we have media and regulator scholarships, but those are specific to professionals in that industry. Other way of seeking finance for the CFA program is, of course, to get employed, as I mentioned earlier, in companies that support the fees. So that's actually a win-win situation. Last but not the least, for those for whom none of these work, we have introduced the flexible payment option, which is the EMI option to pay your fees in equal monthly installments. We've introduced that in partnership with a third-party finance provider. It's an easy process, online processing. It takes 3 to 4 working days, and it's quite seamless. We have chosen the partner with a lot of care and rigor. So you could utilize that option to reduce the burden of payment of the fees at one go. So these are the opportunities available to you.
One more last question from my side before we get to the students' questions. Is there any comment with regards to the pass percentage that we have seen? There's been a bit of fluctuation, especially since COVID. But how do we look at that? Is there any reason why the institute has decreased the pass percentage, that some people say? Although I believe it's in the similar kind of range, except for one term wherein we had a lower pass percentage. But any comment on the pass percentage per se?
CFA Institute does not have any mechanism to artificially control pass percentages. As you know, it is set, pass percentages are on the basis of a rigorous process of standard setting, where even our industry practitioners, our CFA charter holders are involved. So it's a very strong, rigorous process of standard setting. And we go through that with as much of professionalism and transparency year on year. Pass percentages can vary because of a number of reasons. Post pandemic, and we had a challenge because of the fact that a number of students had their exams deferred. So there was some level of tiredness, I would say, that had set in and amongst the students, because every time they prepared, the exams got deferred or postponed, and then they had to prepare themselves again. So that led to that fatigue, contributed to some extent to low pass rates, but they recovered. The second issue was the transition from paper based testing to CBT. Some candidates found it difficult to took a longer time to adjust to the new method of taking exams. Now, with that becoming a standard process and the pandemic behind us, we see a more uniformity or a sort of plateauing in pass rates. They are not as volatile as they used to be. They vary by a few percentages here and there, and that has to happen. If we follow the process of standard setting, then that will happen accordingly. So there is no artificial methodology or reason for us to tinker with pass rates.
Perfect. Absolutely. I just wanted them to hear from you. That's all. Is there any question? If anybody wants to ask a question which has not been covered already in the session, you can type it in in the chat box. One question: how to connect with 1,80,000 CFA charter holders? How do we go about it?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. One thing that I would like to talk about at this stage is membership. So while CFA charter holders become charter holder members of the institute and society, even if you have passed level 1, you can be a member of the institute and society. That category of membership is called affiliate membership. You can apply for it online. You do not need work experience to apply for that category. All the benefits of membership, except the right to vote and the right to use the CFA designation, are available to affiliate members. So you can then partake of all the membership benefits, including mostly free access to a number of our webinars and events as a member. When you attend local, we have chapters in 9 cities, so every chapter is extremely active and organizes events locally. Plus you can of course attend events across all the cities, or come to Mumbai or any place to attend events of the institute and society. That is a great platform for you to interact with fellow professionals and expand your network. The other opportunities, of course, on social media. We use LinkedIn. Make sure that you connect with professionals. But when you connect with professionals, please also do not straight away ask for a job when you first connect with them. Take time to develop your relationship, to establish your credentials, publish the work that you are doing, talk about important issues or challenges that affect the industry. Establish your credentials before you do that. But that's another place where you can network.
Two last questions. Just to answer the students who are asking over here, yes, a recording after, there will be a little bit of editing and fine tuning, and the recording will be made available on YouTube. It will take maybe a couple of weeks, but it should be there before in the last week of March. We'll try to do it earlier. Two questions. So one is with regards to career day. So a student is asking if you could just brief about career day part. And the second question is with regards to how does the institute help in terms of recruitment, placements for the students?
Yeah, good question. I thought that should have come very early. In terms of support, what we do as a professional body is continuously talk to the industry. We constantly advocating with the industry, talking to the industry to build awareness and recognition of the CFA program and charter. That we consistently do. The second is, of course, we have a job site, which is specially, there is an India specific job site that's managed by CFA Society India, wherein the roles that are advertised by the industry. It's a free site for both the prospective employee as well as the employer to advertise jobs from the industry. You can also upload your resume there, so organizations looking for people can search and find you there. There are a number of career tools on that site which can help you, including resume builders that can help you to write a good resume, tools that can help you to decide which is the best career suited to your competencies, tools to prepare for an interview, and helping you with that. There are lots of tools. Please use them, utilize them. That's one site where those are the virtual support systems. On the ground, the society's chapters organize career days in almost every chapter, where we invite companies to come and talk about careers, as well as even offer an opportunity to them to recruit or take resumes, collect resumes at those career days. We organize financial talent summits, which are large platforms where, again, people from the industry come to interact with prospective employees and talk about the jobs and competency requirements in the industry.
I think that's been a roller coaster of questions and must have been a bit exhausting for you, because I was very happily asking questions today and not the one on the answering them today. So I was very happy, very relaxed, nothing much to prepare before the session because all of the effort was taken by you. Thank you so much, Arati, for answering all the questions. And any closing remarks for the students, and we'll call it a day.
Thank you very much, Ashwini, for this opportunity. It's never tiring. It's only energizing to talk to you and talk to the young people out here who are listening to us. And who doesn't like talking when we have an audience? So thank you so much for this opportunity. I would only want to wish all of you best of luck. I think you making the best choices for yourself. You have chosen the right path if you are looking at a career in investment management to begin with the CFA program. Please apply what you have learned and heard today, and I'm sure you will have a very successful career, and I look forward to meeting you through this journey.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arti. Thank you so much. I hope the session was useful and informative, and invest in yourself.